What I tell the advisors when I meet with them every year when we do our annual conferences, they're really doing God's work here, working every day with their clients to help them to achieve their hopes, their dreams, their goals, security. It really is a very, very fulfilling mission that the advisors have. And being part of that is incredibly rewarding for me. And I really do take it seriously that what Wealthcare, our home office team, does is support these advisors in working with their clients to achieve these awesome outcomes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to CBS Spotlight. If you're here by mistake, you're in the right place now. I'm Eric Alvarado, along with my guest host, Mr. Ted Hikes, and we are your friendly guides through this world of insurance and wealth management. Today, we're joined by Matt Regan, president of Wealthcare Capital Management and great CBS partner. Matt, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here, guys.
Thanks, Eric. Matt, we're just going to jump right in here. I mean, the first thing that I would love to know is Wealthcare. That's a powerful name, and it combines, in my mind, kind of two aspects of life, wealth and well-being. How did that name come about, and what does it mean to both you and the employees at Wealthcare?
Yeah, it's interesting. So the name, far predates my involvement with the firm. The founder of the firm, Dave Loper, really was a pioneer in the wealth management industry in a lot of different ways. First and foremost, he invented the whole notion of goals-based financial planning. He created the first piece of software, which was known as FinanceWare, which was based upon Monte Carlo simulations. And what it was used to do was to understand the likelihood of meeting the goals in the plan, those life goals that a client has. And alongside that piece of software, Dave built Wealthcare, which was his RIA. And I think, in Dave's world, the idea of, ensuring great client outcomes and not focusing on investment performance was all about the idea of, true wealth and the advisor's ability to take care of that true wealth. So for us today, it really is kind of an ethos that cuts across the organization. Our advisors are really our clients. We're a platform RIA that supports advisors, and they have their clients. And our software and our whole approach is about ensuring great client outcomes and great life outcomes for those clients. So I think that's what Wealthcare really means to us.
Great response, Matt. For those that are new to the concept, can you explain what goals-based planning means and why it's such a game changer for both investors and advisors?
Yeah, I can certainly give you my opinion. I'm not smart enough to be a financial advisor, so I get out of my depth pretty quickly here. But to me, I contrast goals-based planning with cash flow planning. And cash flow planning to me is really a top-down approach. And goals-based, therefore, is a bottom-up approach. And by top-down, typically with cash flow planning, you have clients that have plenty of money, and it's really just a question of how they're going to spend that money in retirement. Whether they're going to have some sort of legacy goal, or whether they're going to exhaust the money that they have. But you're really focusing on that top-down spending approach. Goals-based, on the other hand, is much more holistic and much more bottom-up. What do you want to do in life? What's important to you? Let's get those into the plan. Let's talk about, when do you want to retire? How much are you going to need in retirement? Creating goals in the plan that you want to meet from the bottom up. Let's start with the outcomes that are most important to you and to your non-CFO spouse, typically. That's also part of the conversation. Let's agree to prioritize those goals, and then let's see if we can make everything work to achieve those goals and track it on an ongoing basis.
That's interesting, Matt. What do you see goals-based financial planning? Where do you see it heading in the next 5 to 10 years? Are there any trends on the horizon that you find particularly exciting?
Yeah, I think we're in the middle of the trends. I think what I've seen, in my 6 years here at Wealthcare, is really a continuing trend towards more holistic wealth management. I mean, advisors, traditionally, the RIA, the most important part of that was the investments. Advisors saw themselves as stock pickers or the next Warren Buffett. And I think what's happened is the A has gotten much more important than the I in the RIA world. And advisors, who simply pick investments and try to beat the market, find that clients don't see value in that. I always say, Jack Bogle at Vanguard has $8 trillion that says you don't know how to pick stocks. And I think that's something that we try to get across to our advisors. The reality is clients want their advisors to provide them holistic, across their lives, wealth management. And I think that's where the industry is going. People often say, that there's going to be fee compression in our industry. And the reality is we haven't really seen fee compression. I mean, advisors are still holding in there, charging 100 basis points. And you could make the argument that they're actually undercharging for their services. But what they are doing is they're doing much, much more for their clients. They're not just investment guys. They're getting involved in insurance. They're getting involved in tax planning. They're getting involved in, the valuation of closely held businesses. There's so much more that they do. And I think goals-based planning and that trend is right at the middle of that.
Yeah, it's a great response, Matt. I think that's what we're kind of seeing across the industry as well. The advisor really taking hold of more than just the investment side of things. And like you said, just trying to be more of a holistic planning and clients going to them for more things than just the investment advice. Wealthcare emphasizes an objective and really personalized client experience. How do you ensure that investors say their unique life dreams are prioritized and built into their financial plans?
Yeah, well, our planning software is really centered around this idea of the comfort zone. And that is a true user experience. I mean, it is a graphical representation of where the client is in regards to achieving their goals. And what the advisor does with the client on an ongoing basis, the users of our software, is they ensure that the client's dot is in the comfort zone. And we define the comfort zone of 75 to 90% likelihood of meeting the goals in the plan. So what does that mean? Well, you would say, why wouldn't I want my dot to be at 99% likelihood of meeting the goals in the plan? Well, we feel that, you can err on the side of over planning and over saving, the same way you can under. And so it's, to us, if your dot is at 99%, you're sacrificing too much in your one life. And you should be doing things like buying that boat you always wanted to do or taking that trip. And if the advisor can keep you in that 75 to 90% range, what we call the comfort zone, what the Monte Carlo simulations tell us that over thousands of simulations of the market, you're going to be just fine and you're going to meet the goals in your plan comfortably. So that's really core to the user experience here at Wealthcare.
I like that flexibility, building
Absolutely.
that in.
Yeah, I love the approach that Wealthcare takes, from a goals-based financial planning perspective. And we're seeing more and more advisors move towards independence. And obviously, that's a space that Wealthcare lives in. What is one of the biggest fears that you find advisors have about taking that leap? And how do you at Wealthcare kind of help them overcome that to move kind of down that road?
Yeah, Ted, that's the other mega trend in the industry is this movement towards independence that we sit right in the middle of. And I don't, we don't disparage the wirehouses or the independent broker dealers, but there's a certain allure for advisors, to leave those employee channels and then, create their own businesses. These are smart, independent business people that understand that creating true enterprise value that they own is a really good idea. So we sit right in the middle of that, and really that you had asked about the big fear. The fear is that the clients aren't going to follow you. That's really the what keeps people in place and creates a lot of the inertia in the industry. And what I tell these advisors is it isn't it isn't the brand name on your business card. It's really you that the clients care about. And we have all sorts of statistics. We've helped nearly 200 advisors move to independence over the past 5 years. And we have all the data to show them that the reality is it's more like 95 to 99% of the clients will follow the advisor to the new situation. That trusted relationship is much stronger than any institution that holds these guys and women as employees. I think the reality is that fear is incredibly overblown. What we are realistic about is that there is some disruption. Repapering these accounts and moving these accounts is not the flip of the switch. I wish it was. I wish the industry did a better job of that. But there's real work involved. And if advisors are thinking about moving to the independent channel, I'll give ourselves a little pat in the back here. You ought to find a firm like Wealthcare that has deep experience and a team dedicated towards those transitions, because it isn't easy. It's not impossible. But we've done it over and over again, and we know how to set expectations and how to help advisors move as seamlessly as possible from one situation to an independent channel.
I think Eric and I have a colleague here. He calls that ACAT hell. Right? Moving those accounts, that 2 or 3 month period where you're moving those accounts. Just as a quick follow up to that, if I'm an advisor, and I've been thinking about that, I've been talking to my wife, my husband, what's the first phone call or step that you would make as an advisor to start the process of moving to independence?
Great question.
Yeah, I think advisors typically reach out to firms like ours or get reached out to by firms like ours to discuss independence. I think it's critically important to have legal representation through the process, particularly if you're coming from the employee channel. One of the things you have to figure out is whether your firm is a part of the broker protocol. What's that? The broker protocol are rules of engagement that member firms adhere to in order to ensure that advisors can move from one firm to another and do it in such a way that they're not stealing information or they're not doing anything underhanded. So firms like ours, like Wealthcare, we adhere to the broker protocol. So we play by the rules. Not everybody does. And there is risk in moving from one firm to the other if you break certain rules. You can't steal customer information. You can't reach out to your clients while you're still at the existing firm and tell them they have to move to the new firm. There's all sorts of rules around this. So I think finding legal representation, and we know lots of good lawyers who deal with this on a regular basis, is critical to the first step here.
So Matt, great response. I mean, it really is a huge situation for clients when they try to move over, or advisors when they try to move over, right? There's so many moving parts and so many things they have to consider. Wealthcare offers a full suite of practice management services for advisors that really help with that transition. Can you share some examples of how these services have helped advisors really create a fulfilling career?
Yeah, we pride ourselves in kind of the breadth of our offering, right? I mean, I always say to advisors that are thinking about transition, if you're just looking for the highest possible payout and a compliance officer that doesn't pay very much attention, there's places for you. We can point you in that direction. We're different in the sense that we try to provide, beyond just our software, a full suite of middle and back office services. So for instance, we run over 200 investment models for our advisors. We manage nearly $8 billion on their behalf. We get them out of the business of trying to pick investments and stocks and doing the investing. We handle the trading. We do compliance. We handle their billing. We provide them operational support. We have a marketing department that helps them with social media campaigns and with digital marketing campaigns, and even things like putting on events. So we try to provide these middle and back office services to the advisors. But we know we can't do everything well. We also have created what we call strategic alliance partners that we work with, and CBS is one of them. And CBS and our other strategic alliance partners fill holes that we can't take care of. For instance, when advisors come to us and say, I need help with deep insurance planning, high-level insurance planning for my ultra-high net worth clients, real designed bespoke casework for them. We turn to CBS for that in order to fill out our offering. We have other partners that do advanced tax planning and tax return prep. We have business valuation services. So we have a whole host of partnerships that we've got in place because we want to be the provider of best-in-class services to these advisors so they can answer the questions that their clients bring to them.
I love that. Matt, I'm curious, what would you say is the most important skill or trait for a financial advisor really to cultivate in today's market, especially as many of them move towards independent practices?
Yeah, I'll give you kind of a mealy-mouthed answer on that one. I think, the reality is advisors need to understand what they do best. And they're all different. We're all different people. Some advisors, identify a certain niche and they're just excellent in that one niche, whether it's, divorce or whether it's women or whether it's, early retirees or something like that. My answer is really empathy. I think that's critical. And, to go back and bash advisors of yesteryear that saw themselves as the next Warren Buffett, you had a different mindset there where it was kind of like, don't worry your pretty head, Mr. or Mrs. Client. I'm the stock picker. I'll take care of everything. As we said earlier, that doesn't really work in today's environment. I think great advisors are empathetic people that are able to put themselves in their clients' shoes and understand their hopes, their dreams, their fears. Use a goal-based planning software in order to kind of organize the client's life around that idea. So I think empathy is my answer. I think the reality is that each and every advisor, displays that empathy in a very different way, and they bring their true self to the conversations that they have with the clients, and that's what I see the real successful advisors doing well.
It's a great perspective and great response. I think, it seems like, no, but you alluded to it, how it seems like some of the smarter advisors are finding what they're good at, right? And then they're building a good team and building those resources around, which is what Wealthcare brings to the table and provides, right? So.
Yeah, we know there are certain things that advisors shouldn't be spending time on. At least that's what we believe, right? We call them the non-revenue generating activities. There's no advisor that differentiates themselves or puts on their business card that they're really good at billing or they're really good at compliance. That's not value add to the client relationship, and it's a colossal waste of time for an advisor to spend time on that. We also think that extends to the investment portfolio, the idea of picking investments, implementing, trading, rebalancing. Those are not revenue generating activities. What advisors should be doing is spending time with their clients, asking for referrals, and kissing babies and meeting new clients. That's how you build a business. So finding a partner that can be that middle and back office outsource solution for you, we think is critically important to the success of the advisory firm.
I'm thinking back to your empathy answer, and as soon as you said it, it struck me that the advisors that, one, I really enjoy working with, and two, are really good at what they do. We don't talk a lot about the math, when it comes to them, right? We talk about their goals. We talk about their kids. We talk about what they're trying to accomplish. And that helps me, from my perspectives, really, design solutions that fit those goals. But those are the advisors that really, I think, do a great job. So I loved that answer.
Yeah, when I first got into the RIA side of the business, I worked for a fantastic firm in downtown Philadelphia. And I had no background. And to this day, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a wealth manager. I'm just an operations guy. And I think the reality is when I saw for the first time how these great advisors at my former firm dealt with their clients, it was just eye-opening to me, because they would walk in with a financial plan that was 30 or 40 pages long, and they would have these 4-hour meetings. And I would just grab them for coffee afterwards, and I'd say, so how did your meeting go with that client? And how did the plan get presented? And they said, yeah, typically they do the first page of the plan. Everybody would agree that everything's okay, and they'd spent 3 hours and 45 minutes talking about their kids. And that's what it, the light went on for me. That's what's really important here, is for advisors to be really the stewards of great client outcomes. And I think that's key to the relationship between great advisors and their clients.
So Matt, I'm really interested to know, what personally motivates you to continue innovating and really leading wealth care. And kind of what do you hope to see achieved in the next decade, both for the company and the broader industry?
Huh. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think this is, this has been a tremendously interesting company for me to work for. It kind of hits my sweet spot of kind of the integration point of technology and operations. So I think I'm pretty good at understanding our offering to the advisors. But more importantly, what I tell the advisors when I meet with them every year when we do our annual conferences, I mean, they're really doing God's work here. Working every day with their clients to help them to achieve their hopes, their dreams, their goals, security. It really is a very, very fulfilling mission that the advisors have. And being part of that is incredibly rewarding for me. And I really do take it seriously that, what Wealthcare, our home office team does is support these advisors in working with their clients to achieve these awesome outcomes. And I think the industry's in a fantastic place right now. You ask a bit about what I see down the road. I think these mega trends that we talked about earlier, the idea of embracing a more holistic wealth management, of embracing the move towards independence and away from the wirehouses. Look, the fatal flaw of the wirehouses is they often try to sell the house coffee, right? Is they're trying to feather their own nests, where the true fiduciary fee-only independent RIA model, we start and end with one idea, and that's what's best for the client. So I do think those mega trends and that motion in the industry towards independence, towards fee only, towards goals based and holistic wealth management is really, really powerful, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon.
Matt, thank you for all the insights and kind of knowledge just about what you guys do over there at Wealthcare and everything that you guys are putting together for the independent advisors. So I want to ask you kind of a funner question. If Wealthcare was a blockbuster movie, what movie would it be?
We would be on Golden Pond.
I gotta hear this.
We would be
Interesting.
We would be Norman sitting on the porch, looking out over the beautiful sunset on the lake, with all of his goals achieved, and nothing but serenity around him. That's the vision for Wealthcare.
Wow. That's a great answer. That really good answer.
I don't know about
Right.
that.
No, it was.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people on this podcast are going to know what that movie is, but we'll see. Matt, great answer. Was unexpected. I appreciate that. One thing I think is definitely going to stick with me is that you said was that you are we're kind of privileged to be stewards of great client outcomes. I that's going to stick with me. I really appreciate you saying that. Great stuff. Great insight. Thank you so much for being a great partner for CBS. And thanks for jumping on and spending some time with us today. We really appreciate that.
Thanks, Matt. It's always good to see you.
Good deal. Hey, well, for everyone out there, exactly. I'm Eric Alvarado.
I'm Ted Hikes.
This has been CBS Spotlight, your friendly conversation for everything insurance and wealth advising come together. Thanks for tuning in. And if you found this helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Rate that podcast 5 stars.